Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a topic that we can all relate to, and that is failure. But instead of seeing it as the end, we're flipping the script to turn your failure into powerful stepping stones towards success. If you've ever felt like failure held you back, this video is for you. So let's get started. Failure is part of our everyday life. It's part of our journey whenever we start something or if we're already doing something. The possibility of failure is always there. But just as the possibility of failure is a reality, so is any success. Yet most of us always let the possibility of failure dictate our lives instead of the possibility of success. We tend to entertain negative aspects instead of positive ones when starting a project or wanting to do something new. In this video, we are going to examine the grim reality of how the fear of failure can destroy our lives. But most importantly, we will also look at how we can turn our failures or the fear of failure into stepping stones and how you can turn failure into something good and wonderful in your life. The power of the fear of failure. Before we understand what kind of power failure has in our lives, we first need to take a close look at what fear of failure itself is. The fear factor. Psychologically, fear of failure can be described as an irrational and persistent fear of failing. It can also be a side effect of another mood disorder such as anxiety or depression. People who tend to be perfectionists also don't deal with failure very well. We learn how to fear because something or someone harmed us physically, emotionally, or psychologically. Fear is a way we tend to protect ourselves from harm and pain regardless of the shape or form in which it comes to us. Fear is a primitive defense mechanism that protects us from harmful and painful things. But the control fear yields over our lives can be paralyzing if we let it run wild. The good news is that you can overcome any fear with the right help and mindset. Sometimes you need a change of perspective or a little brain rewire. Conquering your fears is liberating and enables you to live a fulfilling life. So what is the fear of failure all about? Atychiphobia means an intense fear of failure. As with all fears, when you have a fear of failure, you will avoid any potential situation that could lead to you failing. Feelings such as humiliation, hopelessness, rejection, defeat, shame, or feeling like a fool are all possible side effects of failure, and we will do anything to avoid these feelings. Failure causes physical pain, and in certain circumstances, there can also be a real sense of loss. Any type of loss will cause us to grieve that loss. For example, you built a business from scratch and you poured your heart and soul into it for many years. If it fails for whatever reason, it will cause you intense pain and a terrible sense of loss. You will go through the normal stages of grief, denial and isolation, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally, after a lot of time, you will accept it. So let's face it. Failure is a big deal, and it makes sense why we would rather sidestep it than face it head on. The problem comes when you let your fear of failure keep you from living a life of completeness and fulfillment. The symptoms of fear of failure. Fear of failure can be very subtle and manifest in various ways in our lives. If you are not sure what the symptoms of fear of failure look like, here are a few things to look out for. There's an ever-present reluctance to try new things. You are totally stuck in a rut and have been for the last couple of years. You always give 1,000 reasons why you should not go somewhere or why something will not work. You self-sabotage yourself by procrastinating or not following through on something. You give up before you even start. The thought of trying something new or a new project gives you anxiety. Do you recognize any of these symptoms? Well, if you do, then you might have a fear of failure. The ugly face of failure. There are several ways that the fear of failure can cripple your life without you even knowing about it. So before we change how we see failure, let's look at how failure can mess up your life. It steals your life. The fear of failure tends to paralyze us to the extent that even though we are desperate for a change, we can't motivate ourselves to move. You might have been unhappy in your job for the last 5 years, but sending your CV out and going for interviews is just too much to bear. What if they reject you? What if they think you're an idiot? What if? Many people would rather stay single, even though they would love to have that special someone in their lives. But the possibility of failure and all the possible side effects like rejection leaves them paralyzed. It steals your hopes and dreams. How many of you have that one dream that just never leaves you? Has it been with you for years? You can see it happening. You can feel it happening, but you always find a million reasons not to do something about it. The handful of people who were brave enough to chase the dream never looked back. That burning passion or desire in you to do something great does not result from heartburn. It is to live an extraordinary life. It could even be your life's purpose. The fear of failure is the ultimate dream crusher. It leaves people miserable and dissatisfied with life. The what-if method. Everybody knows the what-if method. You might not use it consciously, but it does pop up in our lives from time to time. It's how we negotiate with ourselves to either convince ourselves to do something or to avoid it. Normally the dialogue goes something like this. Optimism says, maybe I should start my own business. People love the products that I sell. I have sold thousands and made a great profit in the last 3 months. The stupid voice in your head, also known as fear of failure, says, yes, but what if? And just like that, we're screwed. Optimism dies a valiant death. The fear of failure rears its ugly head and your entire story changes. The voice of fear of failure says, what if I fail? What if it was only a lucky streak that people bought my products? Maybe people hate my products. What if business is bad and I end up homeless and I starve to death? Does it sound familiar? Well, there are 2 sides to that what-if method. I love this quote from Erin Hansen, which illustrates this point beautifully. What if I fail? Oh, but my darling, what if you fly? So yes, what if you reach new heights instead of falling flat on your face? You can have an incredible life if you choose to fly. Humans always look at the doom and gloom side of the coin, but every coin has 2 sides to it, even failure. So let's look at how you can fly. Turn failure into stepping stones. If you can change how you look at failure, you will beat the fear and regain your power. That will enable you to turn your life into a life that you want to live. Here is how you can embrace failure and turn it into something good. Number 1. Failure makes you brave and almost indestructible. When the fear of failure starts bugging the living daylights out of us, we often discover how strong our backbone really is. We become superhuman and start to give the fear of failure resistance. We discover incredible strength and find our will to succeed. We become brave in the face of adversity and we start kicking some butt. Suddenly you do things and make choices and decisions that you would never even think about. You put yourself out there, smiling, even though you are rattling inside. When you look back after a few months of becoming superhuman, you realize that failure was nothing but a stupid illusion. You realize that you are so much stronger than the possibility of failure. Number 2, failure teaches you something new. Instead of looking at failure as something you have lost, focus on what you've learned through the process. If your business did not perform well, go and look at why it did not work out. Was it a logistical hiccup or was it that your marketing was poor? Find out. Don't simply accept the failure as a failure. A lot of times people only focus on the failure instead of looking at the lessons learned. In my mind, failure is only a failure if you do not learn the lesson from it or gain new knowledge. You gained invaluable insight and expertise if you learned the lesson from it. This could help you improve your life or your next venture. Number 3, you will grow in a positive way. Failure can positively impact your life. You might not immediately recognize it, but if you look for it, you might see what happened was for the best. Take this scenario. Your boyfriend of 3 years leaves you for another woman. Yes, it will hurt like hell, and you'll feel rejected and humiliated. But 6 months down the line, you will thankfully gain some perspective. You might realize he was very selfish. It was all about him and his needs. Your needs were always brushed aside or ignored. So you start to realize that maybe it was for the best that he left. You also gain some valuable insights, such as that you will rather spend your life with someone who treats you better and commits to you. You put up some personal boundaries. You gain some knowledge of what generally does not work for you in a relationship. You're starting to focus more on your needs. And after another 6 months, you meet Mr. Right and live happily ever after. Number 4, it provides you with alternatives. Failure is a great way to show you another way to do things or what methods do not work. Once you know what does not work, you can start thinking about possible alternatives. You will find things or methods that might work and improve things. The problem is you will not know what does not work if you don't at least try something. If you don't try, you will never know what works. Number 5, teach you perseverance. If failure teaches you anything, it is perseverance. Thomas Edison said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that do not work." How many of us have that kind of perseverance to try something 10,000 times until you find the recipe for success? If you want something to work out, you will find that you are much tougher than you can ever imagine. Your perseverance mode will kick in and your inner strength will amaze you. When you choose that failure is not an option, failure has this weird way of triggering your perseverance mode. Number 6, it takes you on amazing adventures. Looking back at my life and thinking about the number of things I've tried and failed at, I am amazed. Not all of my attempts were failures, but I had amazing adventures trying. I met wonderful people and traveled on fantastic roads. I would never have encountered things, situation, and people otherwise. I learned things about life, people, and myself that I would have missed out on if I had made a different choice or had been too scared to make any choice. Even if everything did not always work out according to plan, I lived. And that is the most essential thing in life. Have no regrets. Enjoy the adventure and live your life to the fullest. You don't know what amazing adventures you might encounter. Number 8, it teaches you empathy. Failure has this amazing ability to reduce us to size and leave us feeling a bit vulnerable. But it also helps us understand what another person might go through when they are facing failure. No man is an island, and if you have lived through failure before, you will be able to help a friend in need, or you could give life-saving advice to someone to meet failure in a similar way. We don't understand the pain that someone is going through if we also did not once walk on the same path. Life is funny that way, but empathy is a wonderful trait to learn and have. It changes you into a kind and understanding human being that gains the ability to understand another's pain. Number 9, failure gives you a choice. If we look at all the possible stepping stones we discussed, it is clear that failure is not that bad. It gives us choices. We can look at it as something bad and negative in our life, or we can flip the coin. We can choose to look at the good and the positive. Let's look at some of the choices that failure hands us. Be brave and take a stand against the failure. Look objectively at the lessons that you've learned because of failure. Failure might open your eyes to the reality of a situation and guide you to create some changes in your life that will help you to grow positively. One thing that failure will emphasize is how not to do it. You can now either quit altogether or look for alternatives to make it work. You have a choice to give up or to persevere and not to stop until you are successful. You can either look at everything that went wrong or you can look for the gems between the rubble. Choose the adventure and there will always be incredible highlights to remember, even if there is a failure. But most importantly, enjoy the ride. Have a heart. Failure is part of our daily lives. Failure excludes no one. You can choose to help someone overcome their failure with the knowledge that you gained. Failure can be a cruel teacher, so choose to be a kind friend and mentor. The survival guide when failure does knock you down. There are some instances where failure is just inevitable. No matter what you do, no matter what you choose, failure is imminent. There's no rhyme or reason why something failed. It's just one of those things. Well, even if failure knocks you out for the count and you are flat on the floor, you still have a choice at how you look at it. So here is my survival guide for gaining some perspective after losing the battle. Big note, it's only a battle lost, not the war. Grieve the loss. You may wallow in self-pity for a while and give yourself time to mourn. Chocolate and wine is definitely permissible. Look at the failure objectively. At least you tried. You did not sit around waiting for better days. You had the guts to try something. Applaud yourself loudly. Cut your losses and move on. The past is in the past. Take the lessons and move on. Take your stepping stones and build something brand new. The sky's the limit. Persevere and don't ever give up fighting for the fabulous life that you deserve. Turning the fear of failure or failure itself into stepping stones will allow you to live a wonderful, fulfilling life. Failure can be incredibly painful, but so is giving birth, and that does not stop us from having babies. Women willingly carry a baby for 9 months, knowing that it will be very painful to bring the child into this world. Yet the moment she holds that bundle of life in her arms, she forgets about the pain. Failure is pretty much the same. Even if we know there might be the possibility of failure or pain, we can't let that deter us from realizing our dreams. We almost immediately forget the pains and aches once we've achieved that success. So, no pain, no gain. So don't let the fear of failure stop you from living a life that you so very much deserve. Even if you did fail, see it as a single stepping stone to the path of greatness and success. Now I want to hear from you. What is the biggest failure you've faced and how did it shape your life? Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs a little encouragement today, and hit that subscribe button for more inspiring content. Until next time, remember, failure isn't the end, it's the beginning of something amazing. You've got this.